Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning marks the 8th and final film of arguably the best franchise of all time. So today I want to rank these films with the tiers bad, meh, good, great, and best of the best. Before we get into my ranking, I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. What's your ranking of the franchise? How does this stack up against the other greatest franchises of all time? All of your thoughts, let me know in the comments down below, but let's get into it. I want to go in release order, starting it off with Mission Impossible 1, and I think this is a great film. Now, this is going to be a really interesting tier list to do because these films have been stacked up over 30 years, which is absolutely absurd. I watched this film for the first time right before Dead Reckoning Part 1, and though I think it easily feels the most simple out of the entire franchise, I think it still works as the perfect basis. There's not much character work going on, but it is just your clear-cut spy thriller film. I don't think either of the first 3 films really delves into the action stunting of it all as much as I would like to, and you can see a clear-cut evolution after movie number 4, which I'll get into in just a second here. So to an extent, I do feel like I'm judging the first 3 films differently than the final 5 films, but that just kind of comes with the franchise that's been evolving for 30 years. Next up is Mission Impossible 2, and this one is going to go in bad for me. Now, I will say this is the only bad film of the entire franchise. I don't think that this is a good film at all whatsoever. I think there's one redeeming quality about it, and it is just Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise. Not even anything specific about him. It's just Tom Cruise doing cool shit like riding a motorcycle and climbing rocks. And then we have Mission Impossible 3. This one is going to go at the top of great. Now, I only have one problem with this film, and that is that it's shot like an early 2000s Transformers movie. It feels like Michael Bay directed this movie, and to me, that just doesn't really work. Now, it works for Transformers, hypothetically, like Transformers Dark of the Moon. I think it works because it's trying to do that. It's aiming to be super insane. The color grading is weird and wacky and super bright. For Mission Impossible, I feel like the more clean and smoother look, more so leaning towards James Bond rather than Transformers, works for the franchise. But other than that, this film absolutely rocks. I think this is the first time where we have a real set of characters that's actually enjoyable. I think this is by far Tom Cruise's best performance as Ethan Hunt in the entire franchise. His eyes alone, not only in that opening sequence, but I think he just has so much more emotional depth to play with as a character. Obviously, he gets married in this film. There's a lot more at stake here, and that's what I think separates this from the first 2 films, even though I'm grouping them together in terms of like what the movies are, in terms of like the stunts and the action. It's all very, very similar in these first 3 films. There's way more emotion here, and that's what really separates this film from the rest. Mission Impossible 3 also features arguably one of the best performances of the entire franchise in Philip Seymour Hoffman. I would say he is the absolute best as a villainous character if he had more screen time, but he kind of more so lurks in the shadows, but the moments he does have are fucking insane. Next up, we have Mission Impossible 4, aka Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. This one is going to go at the very top of great. I really love the evolution of this franchise, and rewatching a bunch of the movies before The Final Reckoning, I really just love the fact that after Mission Impossible 4 or 4 and onward, this franchise is something completely different. Like, it is way more focused on being more of a James Bond type of franchise than anything else, and I think that's consistently where they hit a phenomenal stride. Ghost Protocol is one of the absolute biggest, and I think just the stunt that really propelled this franchise to keep doing more and more insane shit, which is when Tom Cruise is literally climbing outside of the Burj Khalifa. I think the whole idea of the IMF being disavowed, I mean, that Kremlin sequence in the very beginning is absolutely phenomenal as well. But I think all of these catalytic elements in this film are absolutely perfect. And then we have Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This is easily going in best of the best. This is arguably one of the better action films of all time. The introduction of the Syndicate is absolutely perfect, and this is just a phenomenal precursor to whatever the fuck is going on in Mission Impossible Fallout, which we'll talk about that in just a second here. Rebecca Ferguson's introduction into this franchise is absolutely phenomenal. It is like an insane rush of adrenaline, not only for the general character scope of what's going on and kind of fleshing out the like British intelligence and overall like spy world going into the back half of this franchise, but it's also a really refreshing female character in this world, and she genuinely feels like the perfect character and the perfect moment for Ethan. Her death in Dead Reckoning Part 1 absolutely crushed me, and I think it all starts in this specific movie. Like, there is just no way that they could have used her character better. She's so good here. When Alec Baldwin says Hunt is the living manifestation of destiny, I lost my shit. Either this one or Ghost Protocol. I'm pretty sure it was Ghost Protocol. They were my first Mission Impossible films in theaters, and this line specifically will always stay with me because it really does show, like, a lot of times Ethan Hunt does have plot armor and blah, 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 but even that singular plane stunt, like hanging off the side of a fucking plane, is absolutely absurd. And the fact that we know Tom Cruise did that shit for real, I don't give a shit about plot armor when this is what he's doing behind the scenes. Then we have Mission Impossible Fallout. This one is going to go in the best of the best at the #1 spot. I think this is the best, bar none, action film of all time. This is Christopher McQuarrie's second film in the franchise, and I think after Rogue Nation, by the way, I think letting him direct Rogue Nation and Fallout was not only the perfect duo, but really just gives him the perfect story to kind of leapfrog off of. Not only is this film just an amazing action film, it has amazing, like, basically long-ass compilations of the coolest action sequences you'll ever see in your entire life, but the cast is also absolutely perfect. There's a bunch of new additions into this cast: Vanessa Kirby, Henry Cavill off the top of my head. I think every single idea of how the Syndicate transfers over from Rogue Nation is really, really well done. Henry Cavill plays a really good adversary, and not only a good adversary, but I think this is Henry Cavill's best performance of his entire career, like, by far. The Halo jump to bathroom fight scene to VIP auction sequence, they had no misses there. And then that helicopter fight sequence at the end of this movie is absolutely absurd. All this, and it still has one of the most emotional finales of the entire franchise. I feel like I don't have much else to say that I haven't already said about this film. It is the best action film of all time. I don't even think it's close. I think it is the perfect blend of being the most insane action film ever while still having a really interesting and entertaining spy story. I'm not going to say it's the exact best spy story that the franchise has given us, but I think it's the best blend of action and spy story that is humanly possible, and in the history of Hollywood has never been done before, in my opinion. And then we have the precursor to the finale of the franchise, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This one is going to go at the very top of great for me. I don't care what anyone says. You know, this movie might be a little bit messy. The pacing might be kind of god-awful, but I feel like it is the exact tropes of the 2020s films that we've gotten put to the perfect use. There are times where technically it looks a little bit off, but man, does this just feel like peak Mission Impossible storytelling. Like, I think the story is doing too much for its own good at times, but it's also trying to handle just so much, and it's really trying to set up an absurd amount for the finale that, in my opinion, pays it off pretty well. The Ilsa and Ethan stuff is phenomenal. I think Haley Atwell and just the people hunting down Ethan, all of that is combined into this film so well. I think the desert sequence is phenomenal. I think him jumping off of the fucking motorbike off of a hill, parachuting, the craziest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm not saying it's all perfect. You know, I think there are flaws here, but I can look over most of the flaws because it is a 3-hour movie that I could watch in the theater on repeat all day, every single day of my entire life. I think the villainous idea of AI and this ever-evolving, like, end-of-the-world thing is such a insane step up from assassins chasing them because they have nuclear codes, but I really like that evolution of the franchise, and I really like how that transfers over into the newest film. It's genuinely just so much grander and more bombastic than anything we've seen in the entire franchise ever, so I can't help but respect it. I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I genuinely think this will not only go down as one of the most underrated films of the franchise, but just one of the most important and ambitious. But finally, we have the final film in the entire franchise, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This one is going to go in the middle of best of the best. I think this is the second best film of the entire franchise. I think it's very, very close to Rogue Nation, and at the time of recording this video, I've only seen Final Reckoning one time, but man, was my experience with this movie just absolutely phenomenal. I cried my ass off at the very end. Now, I won't be talking any spoilers in this video. I have a full spoiler review coming soon, but every single action sequence had me on the edge of my seat. I think that plane sequence is arguably the best stunt of the entire franchise. I think the Halo jump stunt comes very, very close to that, and it might be better. But as of now, I mean, my heart rate, I checked my watch, spiked to 160, and I have a resting heart rate of 59. So this movie just killed me mentally in the best way possible. There are so many lines in this movie, and I can't just specifically pinpoint one. The Mission Impossible franchise has really evolved into something that is the perfect modern day encapsulation of what is going on in our world. From nuclear war to mistrusting governments to the overtaking of AI, there are so many problems and flaws with the world that we live in today. And I think, not to get too deep, but the reason we go watch movies is to escape that. This movie takes every single real world problem you could think of and brings it to the forefront in the most scary way possible, but in the most real way possible. And that's why I think thematically this franchise has just evolved into the perfect being. And this being the final reckoning, Tom Cruise being the 60-plus-year-old age that he is, and the fact that he is still doing every single thing necessary to make these movies as phenomenal as they can be is a thematic expression in and of itself that human craft and human passion will always beat out what is quote unquote destiny. I don't want to speak for your opinion on your outlook of life and what you think or don't think will happen in this world in the future. But to me, destiny is something that I really do believe in, but I don't believe that your destiny is set. I believe that you write your own destiny and that you can change your destiny based on your actions and efforts. And I think Ethan believes the same thing, and that is executed phenomenally in this film. The thematically ambitious love for this film aside, I think this also functions as the perfect ending to the franchise. Not only is every character perfectly written, I think we have really great stakes, but everything is also tied back to the franchise in a really great way. And there are a couple of comparisons you can make. Like, I think X-Men Days of the Future Past tries to do that. I think Avengers Endgame very notably tries to do that. But all of them try to go back in time and really try to use past plot points to move things forward. This film, in my opinion, is like the greatest version of Avengers Endgame we could have gotten possible. And it's just awesome that it's in the Mission Impossible franchise where you already have phenomenal character work throughout the entire 30 years. I think the character that best encapsulates the use of quote unquote nostalgia in this film is William Dunlow from the very first Mission Impossible film, who in my opinion plays a really essential, not only like being a part of Ethan's team role, but just in general being the thematic encapsulation of someone affected by the IMF so heavily, someone so affected by Ethan's actions. And that seems to be the whole consistent theme here, because as we find out in the film, this is a very, 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 very slight spoiler. It was revealed in the trailers, but the whole reason the entity exists is because Ethan stole the rabbit's foot, the code in the rabbit's foot. And I love the way that William is talking to Ethan about perspective and life, of how if Ethan never took William out of his position, his job at the IMF, he would have never led the life that he loves to live. And man, it's just that just feels perfect. And I genuinely, that sequence in the plane between both of them really just gave me not only a different perspective on the characters in this film, but my outlook on life. And I don't know, I don't really know how to describe it. I feel like I'm just jumbling over my words here, but this film really hit me on a level that I didn't expect. And I think it just proves what Tom Cruise has set out to do as a filmmaker, as an actor, whatever you want to call it. Like I said before, films are meant to take us out of real life, but the best films bring the real life out of us. They really dig so deep that, yes, you're on your edge of your seat during all of the stunts and all of these insane moments. Yes, my heart rate went from a resting 59 to 160, but it all is done with so much heart in it. And that's really where you find like the power of filmmaking. That sounds corny as shit, but I'm not even lying. Anyways, that wraps up my ranking for all 8 of the Mission Impossible films. Sorry if that last one got a little bit too elongated, but I just love the movie, and I really hope you guys did as well. I would love to hear all of your thoughts on not only the franchise as a whole, but what are your favorite films? What's your ranking looking like? And how does this stack up against the other greatest franchises of all time? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.